I am David, your developer on duty, and in this video we will see what's new in Neovim 0.6. Compared to the release of Neovim 0.5, 0.6 doesn't come with huge new features like the native LSP support or tree-set integration, but it builds upon it and brings good improvements. Many of them are not directly visible to the end user, but more directed towards plugin authors. There are also better defaults, performance improvements, more standardization, and other goodies. So let's look at some of the new things. Let's have a look at some of the better default key mappings and options. You have to know in Vim and also Neovim, if you press Shift D, you delete until the end of the line. If you press Shift C, you change until the end of the line. And now in Neovim 0.6, if you press Shift Y, you yank until the end of the line. This is very consistent and certainly a good new default key mapping. The inc command is set to no split. For example, if you do some replacement, for example, app rename to app, you immediately see the feedback in your document before even applying it. This is especially useful if you use capture group in your regular expressions. So let's just, as an example, change the order of words separated by dots. So I capture all words, then separate them by dots. And now I replace them in the opposite order, so 2.1, and you can see the immediate effect. What's also new is that once you have some search highlight, you can just press Ctrl L to clear it, which is super useful. As you probably know, with the release of 0.5, we got native support for the language server protocol. It works like this. You have this Neovim instance, and as an external program, you have a language server, for example, for TypeScript. And this language server is used for things like auto-completion, go-to-definition, and so on. And what it does, it will send JSON objects to the Neovim instance. Now in the case of the TypeScript language server, it can happen that for auto-completion it would send a lot of completion candidates of the order of 10,000. So it's a huge JSON object which needs to be deserialized to the respective Lua table. Now before 0.6, the function vim-fn JSON decode was used, including a Lua function which recursively converts vim-nil to nil, and that was a slow process. Now, with Neovim 0.6, the Lua C-JSON decoder is used, which is not only faster, but can already correctly convert to nil values. On the standardization front, there is now vim-fn input, which is a great way to standardize the UI for input. As an example, let's have a look at code actions. If you execute Lua vim lsp buff code action, then you can see at the bottom a list of actions to pick from. Now, before 0.6, plugin authors, for example, Telescope, had to provide an own function. In this case, Telescope lsp code actions to change the look and feel. But in the future, they can directly hook into vim-fn input and globally change it. Another example of better standardization is Diagnostics. You can see here some diagnostic information from my language server in the background. In Neovim 0.6, they changed the API for Diagnostics from Vim LSP Diagnostic, which is, as the name says, specific to the language server protocol, to Vim Diagnostics, and now also allow other diagnostic providers, not just language servers. On the virtual text front, you know, these texts which are inaccessible by the cursor, which you cannot select or modify. There's now also support for virtual lines. Let me simulate this with some custom Lua function which I wrote. So now I added a virtual line, and as you can see, you cannot access this line, and it helps plugin authors to display some information. Now that's it. These were my favorite features of the 0.6 release of Neovim. Please check out the release page of 0.6. It contains much more information, and there are a lot more features which I haven't mentioned. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.